Hey, and welcome to Rehab My Soul. I'm Lamiski Love. I am your host. Today, on episode 3, we are going to have a conversation with Jennifer Major. She is an intuitive life organizer. I didn't even know that existed, but it's a conversation, guys, that I didn't even know I needed. So, we spent some time talking about how to create an organization system, a tidying system that's specifically for you. It's not unique, but it is specifically for you and your flow. So, the conversation that Jennifer and I are going to have today is going to be more of a consult. So, I'll be explaining some of the things that I'm struggling with, and she'll just be giving me some intuitive advice. And I loved it that way because it really created an environment for me to get some of my needs met, of conversations that I've never had before, didn't even know I needed to have before. And guys, so this particular episode was recorded about a couple of months ago, and I want to let you know, like, since then so many things have shifted for me in my life as far as my space and how I look at it and how I love on it and things like that. So this episode is really special to me in that way, that it was just a magical time. It was a great fun conversation. It was off the cuff. It might not be politically correct, but it's just two people having a good conversation about something that all of us essentially need to discuss, but we don't. So we have ideas about the patriarchy. We talk about our values when it comes to our organizing. And it's just a really intuitive approach to keeping our space in a condition that feels good for us. So we're going to jump right in. I hope you enjoy it. Check out the show notes at the end and let me know what you think about this episode and what you were able to take away from it. All right, let's go.
But then it was also that, like, I seem to be able to sort of solve their stuckedness without them even realizing how. And it was really because I would get those intuitive downloads and, like, because I would start asking them questions like, okay, well, why is this hard to throw away? And, that kind of thing. Because, like, well, I don't want this pen. Okay, well, then why do you still have it? I don't know. And it would be this big thing. And so I would be able to direct my questions in this really very specific way. And so then that's when, like, the sort of, like, underground subtle energy stuff started, like, weaving its way in. And then at some point I gave up the HR because I was like, this is not fun anymore. This is, there's too many laws to remember. Like, I
Right.
want to live more in my, because when I learn, I'm a metabolized kind of learner. Like, I learn it and it's just part of me now,
Yep.
as opposed to being able to regurgitate facts. Like, don't
Right.
ask me when that law was or what the thresholds are for it. I don't know. I can go look that up, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
I don't have memory for those types of things.
yeah, yeah, it's just not in me. And so but that's when I really started realizing, like, how much my intuition really was a part of that organizing work and the time management work that I was doing with both companies and individuals,
Right.
and helping them to create systems that were just so specific to them, but not unique.
Hmm.
Does that make sense? Right? Like, so here's sort of a, like, when you come in with your mail, you need to have a place to drop it, you need to have a place to sort it, and a place to deal with all the stuff.
Right.
There can be 12 different iterations of what that looks like, right?
Right.
So, sort of here's a very basic template of a process. But if I gave you a very specific template of, okay, you need to create these folders and it needs to be sitting on your kitchen counter, but that's not where you came in, then the mail would still end up on your coffee table, right?
Right. I
And
see
you'd
what you're
have these
saying.
beautiful folders ready to receive it in the kitchen, right? But
Right.
it never actually sees the kitchen. And vice versa. If people have their office upstairs and that's where they think they want to do the mail, but like the mail never sees the light of day up there, well, then it doesn't matter, right? It's not working for
Right.
you. Doesn't mean it's a bad system. It's just not a good system for you.
Right.
And so that's where I really started kind of honing in on, okay, how do we take some of these basic concepts and really help you dial into what makes sense for you, because that's when it sticks, right?
Yeah.
And ultimately it comes back to the value. I mean, like we talked about a little bit in the voice notes, it comes back to, what do you value in that space? What do you value about that mail, about the paper process, about, how you come into your home with that mail? Do you come in directly with it, or do you come home and then you go out and get it? There's no wrong
Wow.
answer,
Yeah. Those are all
right? Because some
details I
people
didn't
like to
realize
arrive.
mattered. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because some people like to just sort of arrive and just sort of, right? Or if you work from home, like, you may not have even left, right?
Yeah. I get the mail like every 10 days working from home
Right.
because I don't leave.
Well, and some of it depends on, like, is it right outside your door? Is it down the street?
Right.
Is it, downstairs in a, like, a kiosk kind of thing? Like, right? I mean, if I have to pass it to get in my house, well, then it's technically easier for me to grab. Doesn't mean I want to grab it then, right?
Right.
But if I have to go down the street or downstairs or whatever, and it's not in my path, yeah, 7 to 10 days is about the average for that. So, but then that means you're coming in with the mail,
Right.
right? Not just two or three pieces to sort of easily process. And so, okay, so that means that's not a daily process for you. That's call it a weekly process.
Right.
So then how do you design that for yourself? And how do you design that so it sticks and it feels good and it feels easy? Because if it doesn't feel good and feel easy, it's not going to stick.
Right.
Not once and not long term. And so it's one of those that, like, initially it feels like a lot of heavy lifting. Like, you want me to come up with my values for what? Like,
Right.
all these little things, right? But once you start doing it, it starts to feel easier, and you start to refine your values, because some of them are the same from room to room
Hmm.
and some of them aren't, right? Some of your spaces may be shared, some of them maybe not.
Hmm.
And so, that plays into it too. And so, there's so much that gets wrapped up in it. And the same applies to your schedule.
Right.
It's no different than the stuff. Like, what am I willing to let onto my schedule? What am I not willing to let onto my schedule?
And what time of day is good for me for these certain tasks? And am
Right.
I trying to do it this way because the book says your morning should be filled with this when I actually want to
Right.
do that? Yeah, for sure.
Right.
That resonated
Yeah.
with me very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if your sweet spot is 1 to 3 in the morning, who cares?
Right.
Right? I mean, if that is your sweet spot for creative space, then let that be your sweet spot for creative space.
Yep. Let me turn this heater back
Right?
on.
I mean, when we have a 9 to 5, well, yes, we have to fit that norm that exists for that whole organization to some extent, right? There have to be some common hours at least. But especially when you work for yourself and in an international economy, I mean, one of my favorite VAs I ever had, and God love her, she ended up like going and doing crazy big things, but she was in Australia. And so we could have about 1 hour every day that was a solid, good waking hour for both of us.
Right.
And that was about it. And so once a week, we would have a call during that magical hour. And the rest of the time, it was electronic. But like, I could wake up and literally a day's work had been done. And then I would go do what I needed to do and be able to hand things off. And then she could go and, she had an
Right.
entire day where she was not interrupted. So she loved working with US clients because she was really pretty uninterrupted in her work. And, but it also meant that she had to do some planning up front to make sure that she had all the questions answered that she would need to be
Right.
able to do the work, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
As opposed to like, hey, I'm going to ping you because I have a quick question in the middle of the day.
Right.
Well, that was my 2 a.m. Like, I wasn't going to respond. So, I mean, so our sweet spots can be where the heck they want to be, and that may even include, you know, nap time from, I'm going to eat lunch at noon, and at 12:30 to 2, I'm going to take a nap.
Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah. I'm realizing that too
Mm-hmm.
about the midday naps and the like for me it's late morning, so I don't feel rushed even though I still lay in bed
Mm-hmm.
and feel rushed. But but at least the start time is later. But yeah, I'm giving myself grace
Mm-hmm.
on those types of things, not even realizing. Well, I guess in a way I am realizing that I just want to be more of myself. So how can I
Mm-hmm.
just be more of myself with everything that I do? So,
Right.
yeah.
Well, and that's it. I mean, it's about like really leaning to your into your authentic self, figuring out what that is, right?
Right.
Because you got to figure that part out. But really leaning into that in a way that feels good. I mean, and like one of my clients, this is like the greatest example. She felt like, convenience and thriftiness were like her top two values when she first started working with
Mhm.
me. And I was like, okay. And of course, like I'm seeing the ancestral history on that one, right?
Right.
And especially for a lot of Gen X, like we have a lot of that because our parents were children of Depression era,
Right.
right? So a lot of that flowed through. So like, literally I'm still wearing pajamas that are threadbare and those kinds of, I have towels with holes in them, but they still work, right? So I don't need to get rid of them. That
Oh,
kind of thing.
snap. That's me.
Yeah. So
I didn't even think about that.
and here's the thing, that means that you value thriftiness. That means that you value, kind of that recycle reuse, the longevity of things. But is that really what you value? Right? Or is that what your parents valued and you just adopted?
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
what she ended up finding, I mean, and we're talking like we were working in the bathroom, right?
Right.
So a place that's not a super emotional place, like the closet or the bedroom can be a much more emotional
Right.
laden place. But the bathroom is the bathroom, right? But what it meant was that like all of her skincare routine, her makeup, all that was literally all on the counter. At least half of it was stuff she hadn't used in over a year because she didn't like it. She didn't like the way it smelled. She didn't like the way it felt. She had started using natural and some of it was not natural. I mean, like all this stuff, right? But it still worked. So why
So
would
I
I throw it
can't throw it
away?
away. Yep.
Right. And convenience, it all had to be on the counter because it all had to be at hand's reach, right?
Yeah. Because if I put it away, I definitely won't use it, but I'm keeping it. So
Right.
I got to keep it visible because then I'll
Right.
use it. But even though I don't really want to use it.
Exactly. Exactly. And so we always start the process with just, like you figure out your values, and so she knew she wanted to bring beauty into that value set for the bathroom. Like it didn't need to be just a functional place. It could also be beautiful and functional, right? They're not mutually exclusive. And so then that kept running into convenience and thriftiness, right?
Mhm.
Because how does all this crap sitting on the counter feel beautiful,
Right.
right? And so it's like, okay. So thriftiness was the first one to go because she realized that she also valued herself and what she chose to put on or in her body,
Mhm.
and that she wanted it to reflect who she felt like she was, showing up in even going to bed with her husband of 25 years, like showing up in threadbare jammies didn't feel like her. And so like that started to fold in that, like, okay, honoring myself and the beauty of myself and what I put on and in me matters. And so then that all of a sudden like impacts all this. Like, okay, well then why am I keeping the stuff that I don't want to, like, I will never use this skincare. So why am I keeping it? I can offer it to a couple of friends if they want it, great. If not, trash.
Right.
And so, kind of in that initial sorting process, that's where that started narrowing itself down to like, this is the stuff I actually use. but then it was still on the counter. It was a lot less on the counter, but it was still on the counter. And then, the convenience thing kept coming back in. She's like, but I really do like things to be convenient, but I really want them to be beautiful, right? And so how does that work? And I was like, well, what if you had a basket, that's nice structural basket, that had all of your morning and evening routine stuff in it, and a nice little spot underneath the cabinet that it could live, to where literally all you had to do is pull it out, put it on the counter, and it's all right there for you. And then when you're done, tucks right back under. And she's like, oh my God, I never even thought about doing that, right? About consolidating it and then creating a space for it so that it had a place to live. And she's like, and now she's like, I'm realizing as you've said that one of my other values, that that's been a challenge with all the stuff all over the counter, is easy to clean. Because she likes things really clean. But when you've got,
Yeah.
30 different bottles and potions on your counter, like, holy crap. Like,
Yeah.
you just end up cleaning around it, right? Rather than taking it all off, because nobody got time for that.
Right.
And so she's like, now it's super easy to clean. Holy crap. Like, and so then it sort of all fell in place, and it sticks because it works for her. If you're an out of sight, out of mind person, which she's not, then that wouldn't necessarily work. Maybe that basket sits on your counter, but it's still consolidated. It's still easy to move, to clean, right? But if like if you need to see that skincare, otherwise the skincare is never going to happen,
Yeah, that's different. Yeah.
then you do it differently, right? And so that's, or, if you don't care about what you put on your skin, right? And so you've got all these things you've tried, then okay, so I'm just going to, which one has the lowest amount? And I'm just going to start burning through them, right? So if that thriftiness is still a really strong value, okay, well then don't just throw them away. As long as the other side is not a conflicting value, right? And so that's where that value stuff comes in. But then it makes the decision making easier.
Right.
Because I mean that's really like, I mean, and I've seen it time and again, that like that's where the stuckedness, the hoarding, the any of that, the putting all the things on your calendar, the busy is because we're not filtering it through anything, right?
True.
So once you have that
Yeah.
value set, then that's your filter.
Yeah, that's your boundary. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to do meetings before 10 a.m. Okay. And if somebody is like, well, so you've got somebody else you want to meet with and they only do meetings between 8 and 10, well, can one of us move to 9:30, or 10 to 10:30, or maybe it's just not a good fit,
Right.
you know, and that's okay. So it's very empowering to, once you start setting those values, and then it's also easy, like you think about a closet and going shopping. If I want things that are beautiful, that fit me well, that are in good condition, so they don't have those like stupid little holes around the belt buckle situation. They don't have, like, they're not colors that don't look great on me, that are not fabrics that are fussy, whatever, right? Whatever your values are about your clothes. Well, now it's so much easier to go through them and decide what you're keeping. But if you're out shopping, you run it through that filter,
Yeah.
and that's easy, right? As opposed to the, lamenting and, okay, I'm going to buy this even though I'm not sure, but it's a really good deal, and then it sits in the closet for 6 months with the tags on it.
Wow. My brain is just you can see my eyes going up to the left. I'm
Yeah.
like, whoa. Like I'm thinking about all these things as it compares to me, of course, and things that I picked up from my parents and things that
Hmm.
I released on purpose from my parents. Um, wow. Wow, wow, wow. Yeah.
But there's so much that's just still woven in there,
Hmm.
right? And some of it is from our parents specifically, some of it is from society, some of it is
Yeah.
the, sort of the patriarchal expectations of what, women should be, which is,
Hmm.
its own set of BS. And and it's one of the reasons that a lot of people have really tidy houses. Just don't open the closet, don't open the cupboard,
So
you
that's
know.
what that's a little download or something that I got before our call was I love watching the real estate shows that show the big fancy houses and how
Hmm.
everything is so picture perfect. But I realize those houses are built to hide clutter. They have bigger closets, they have bigger, like everyone has some clutter somewhere. So I'm just that person where I'm like so authentic that I don't hide stuff. So I have a very small space, but I've got a big life. And I say that to say like I'm have art, I've got a lot of body care stuff because I live alone, so I got to get my back
Hmm.
massaged at some point. So I've got all
Right.
these different massagers and exercise equipment, and they're all
Hmm.
around me reminding me that they're there, but everything is
Hmm.
high quality. And so that I realize is my value, but it makes it harder to declutter and resell because I'm never going to get what I paid for it. But is it really about what I paid for it, or is it the convenience of having it there when I think I want it? Because I exercise differently at different times. So I've got this big ass trampoline right here, but when's the last time I used it? But will I sell it? Hell no, because it's an amazing trampoline.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is, like, if you know that you live in seasons, that's fine,
mm, live
right? I
in
mean,
seasons. Yeah, that's definitely me. But yeah, and then I have so many different interests and hobbies. I've got the art area, which I made big enough. I made it important enough to make the dedicated area for the art.
hmm,
But now I don't do art right now. So it's like I want to do more art, but it's just kind of stressful because the area doesn't seem to be big enough. But then I gotta have area to film. I have this furniture that I move around, which I learned about myself. I like flexible spaces. I like to
hmm,
have like to be able to move so I got rid of the big 3-seat sofa and I've got two
hmm.
armchairs because it's just me, and maybe a guest if I have people over. But man, so I realized some of those values, not realizing I was thinking about it. And then my mom got me this furniture probably about over 10 years ago, so it's some old furniture, but it's still good. And I got rid of the sofa, and I learned not to tell her when I'm getting rid of stuff because she thinks I should keep it. And I'm like, okay, but you don't control this space. And she tries to tell me what to do with it. And I'm like, it's not yours anymore. Like, so I got over that
Hmm.
pressure of thinking, oh, I need a 3-piece furniture set in this tiny space to get rid of the sofa. Also got rid of the sofa for an emotional issue because I had a couch surfer that really pissed me off. And I was like, all right, no more couch surfers.
No more
And I'll
couch.
and no more couch.
Yeah, that solves the couch surfer in a hot second.
Exactly. So yeah, man. And so now that I think about the next place that I want to move into and how many bedrooms I should get, because I do desire to have a very aesthetically pleasing living space. Like I want
Hmm.
every area to be aesthetically pleasing because I did not grow up with that. And I don't
Right.
inherently know how to create that for myself. So that's why I told you I wanted to hire an organizer first to appreciate the space that I'm in and
Hmm.
show me processes and things. And then when I move into the next place, adjust the organization to that place as well, because I'll have walk-in closets. I'll just have more space. Um, so yeah, man. So I've been picking up on my values, but probably not enough in enough of the areas. But then at the same time, I feel that it's a struggle because I have so much stuff in a small space. Because I had a
Well,
bigger place and then I downgraded, but I didn't want to throw everything away.
well, and again, some of that is you're in an interim season, right?
Yeah.
So you were in a bigger place, you'll be in a bigger place again, and some of the stuff that you have still suits you,
Yep.
even if it doesn't suit the space.
Yeah.
And that's okay, right? As long as it's not contributing a lot of negative energy in your current space,
Right. No, I don't feel
right?
that way.
And whether
No.
that's it being in your current space or it being a storage unit that, you feel negative about paying every month kind of thing, right? And so,
I considered that.
um, but, I love the idea of having a flexible space because some people just really want that.
Yeah.
But like you said, I mean, if you have giant furniture, well, that's not so flexible.
Right.
Although with super sliders, I will tell you, because I'm a flexible space girl myself. The super
What's
sliders, you can move almost everything. They look like a
oh.
coaster, and one
Oh, and they
side
go
has like a
under.
thick foam, and the other side but I mean, it really looks almost like a coaster.
Yeah.
This
I
side
know what
has
you're
a
talking
thick
about.
foam, but this side is like a super slick plastic.
Yeah.
But you can put them underneath like the feet of like even a super heavy thing, and off you go, all by yourself,
Right.
moving giant ass pieces of furniture across the
Right.
room. And so, yeah, no, it's amazing. Yeah, I did a lot of that when I was single, and I remember I would have my parents would come in, or friends would come in and be like I was here yesterday, and that was like I just felt different and just needed to
I
move,
know.
right?
I just needed a second.
But I think about with your art supplies, think about what really suits you, right? Like when you want to do your art, what does that look like? What does that feel like? Where do you want to do it? Do you want to go to that art area and do it there sometimes? Or do you want to be able to grab stuff and go sit in your comfy chair and look out the window? Or do you want to, and it depends on what kind of art, like painting needs to kind of be in a spot, whereas drawing and
Resin.
coloring and that kind of thing, right? Yeah, those
Yeah.
kinds of things that can be wherever.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do resin art. So it's very strict, like the
Hmm.
timing of it and all of that and the fumes. So that's another reason I stopped it too. I can't wait to have a dedicated art room. So when I go there, I just know it's gonna be messy, it's gonna be whatever, and I don't have to think
Hmm.
about, oh my God, don't get it on the carpet. Oh my God, did the cat
Right.
all that stuff. So that's a part of a season for me that I'm waiting for, I guess,
Okay.
because I started it, but then I want to make really big pieces. And these big pieces need space to dry for 72 hours without
Right.
getting cat fur in it, you know?
Right.
Nobody's
Yeah,
paying
because
for
they
that.
have no boundaries. Yeah, they
They
have no
have
boundaries.
no boundaries.
No,
Uh,
not a single
unless
one.
it's their boundary, then they have a boundary. But when it's yours, it's funny because that's what I was thinking this morning. That's so hilarious. That's literally what I thought this morning before I got out of bed. But yeah, so the art space, I want a dedicated art space and I just can't have it here. So I've moved away from it, but everything is still there. So it's like this reminder of like, okay, you're not doing art, but then at the same time, you do art and the art that you have is beautiful, but it's more stressful to do it in this space because of the
Sure.
carpet. So yeah, okay, so that's kind of settled, but I do need to organize the actual bucket of supplies, I think. um
Yeah, I mean, envision that new space, right? Generic rectangular room, right?
mhm.
What sort of shelving and storage would you have? How would you want those things organized? Right? Do you want them in boxes? Do you want them in bins to where they're sitting out and you can just grab and go?
I want to
Do
go
you want them in
vertical. I've always seen like the even I do also want like a workshop in like a shed, like a garage type of thing.
Mhm.
And I always wanted to learn and have more patience with going vertical. And that's one thing that I did not see my parents do. There was not a lot
Mhm.
of vertical shelving. There wasn't a lot of thought or
Mhm.
money put into organizing things. So,
Mhm.
and I'm not like I'm blaming them. It's just I'm used to seeing certain things. And I realized, oh, if I went vertical, this place could actually be a bit more aesthetically pleasing if I use the walls more efficiently. So I definitely
Right.
see like all my pigments lined up like a rainbow on the wall, and then
Mhm.
having my canvases tucked off in one area. So yeah, I can see the big space, but I just can't see it in here.
Okay, but if you're not going to actually do it in this space, then don't try to organize it for this space. But
Right,
go ahead and organize it for that bigger space,
right.
and then explore what other kinds of art can you do now so that it can still fill that creative bucket, right? But that's something that feels easy to do in this space, right? Is it
Right.
making smaller pieces of the resin art? Is it doing a completely different medium? What does that look like, right?
Yeah.
Because the desire is still there. I can see it in you
Yeah. It is
that you
very
that you
much
miss
there.
it.
Yeah.
But logistically that is not a good space to do the art that you want to do with the resin, well then it's not no amount of organization is going to make that better, right?
Right.
You can organize it to where it's easier to do smaller stuff or to move it and to a little bit more plug and play once you get to a bigger space. But in the meantime, how can you also incorporate something else? Or if there's certain tools that you can use for doing small resin work that you could do in that space, because then maybe you could lock those pieces to dry in the pantry or something like that, keep them away from the cat fur, or
Yeah.
put them in a box or whatever, right? What might that look like?
Yeah, I've done that, but the smaller pieces don't get me excited.
Well, then don't do that.
Yeah,
Find a different medium.
maybe so. Yeah. Okay, I'll think about that. Thank you.
Well, and I mean, and some of
Wow.
it is just even go on, like go on YouTube and look at different mediums and sort of see like, does that jazz me, right? And try several different teachers, right? Because energetically, right, you may like, I like that art, but I kind of want to kill them, right? Like,
You
right? I
get
mean,
me.
that
You
happens
totally
sometimes,
get me.
right?
Yeah.
And so, well, because I mean, if the energy is not there and it's not in alignment, like it doesn't matter how good they are,
Right.
right? That's why there's like 400 different kinds of apples, right? It's okay.
Right.
And so, find, and just sort of explore. And then you can sort of dive off into the deep end of like going and getting the supplies and getting the whatever you want.
Right.
And, and then physically exploring doing that art. But, just experiment with it. Take classes, whether they're online or in person and, you
Well,
know.
that's what I did to get into resin art. So I
Mhm.
love the type of art that I do. The results are just so mind-blowing for me, and it's abstract, so I don't have to be perfect, but then also it comes out beautiful. So I'm
Mhm.
very excited about that type of art, which is why I want to do the bigger pieces, because I definitely want to monetize it at some point. But I guess because I feel like I can't get there, I just put it to the side, which you said it's okay. So Jennifer said it's okay, so it's okay.
Well, and the other side of that is there a limiting belief on that, right?
Right. For sure.
Can you monetize smaller pieces? Can you get going on smaller things now? What is it about the smaller pieces that you don't enjoy? And just sort of
They happen so
exploring that.
quickly. They happen so quickly. But yeah, I think that, and I, because I think what I wonder is if I can make a small piece, can I really recreate it in a big piece? Because it's different. Resin is, the
Right.
consistency, the pigment, and the actually amount of pigment that I need. But anyway, we're diving really deep into that. But
No, no,
it's
no. But
just,
but what I want to you said something a minute ago that I want to
okay.
highlight for you.
Okay.
The small pieces don't take as long.
Right.
So your art experience, it sounds like you value that process,
I,
taking
yeah.
and seeing that transformation of what you're doing.
Well, right. And I feel like I can't be quite as creative because resin is not very precise with the way that I work it. So
Mhm.
a bigger piece, because I made a piece that was like a medium size. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh man, like it was just me just being creative. And I was like, man, this
Mhm.
came out beautiful. But thinking about making that on an 8x8 stresses me out. But a 40x40 is like, oh, I can't wait to try that. So I value the
Mhm.
meditative time that it takes to create
Mhm.
these things. So it's more of a meditation for me. And so I don't need a 5 minute
Mhm.
meditation because that's just
Right.
like, that's like a factory. Like I'm just pushing something out. No, I want to create something.
So then take that value as you explore different mediums. What else can you do that maybe is easier to do in a smaller space, doesn't need the
Right.
same drying time,
Right.
or is easier to, like, you could hang it up, right? Like painting, right? Painting's one of those you can do layer after layer after layer over the course of time, right? Just using that as an example. But you could hang that up and get it further away from the cat, right? I've got cats, so I totally get that, right?
Right.
So, or I mean, but the values thing comes into everything that we do, not just the organization, not just the time, but it makes that decision making easier, because otherwise you're literally just bumping around trying to figure it out. And at some point you just get tired because that decision fatigue just, I don't know. It's like trying to decide where you want to go to dinner with a group of 10, right? Like, oh my God. Right.
Right.
So, but if like, okay, I want to go to someplace that's quiet, that has good food, that has food that works for vegans and everybody else, that offers good wine but also good mocktails, and right, then that suddenly narrows
Yeah.
that search down, right? I mean, I mean, you think of all these things like a Google search. How many different things can you put in there, right?
Yeah.
And so as you think about that, whether it's with your closet or your art or your bathroom or whatever, it still comes down to those values. And that
Mm.
helps you make that decision more easily. Like, you like that long meditative process of the art and the creation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, so like that's not coloring, right? Like that's quick, right?
Right.
You know, there are some things that, like there are things out there that could fit that.
Actually, coloring is an option because I have those really complex adult coloring books and they do take
Mm.
more time.
Mm-hmm. And they can be
So,
very meditative. I love coloring.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So maybe I should pull that back out.
But like, here's a crazy thing. I think I told you that I had an accident at the end of September where I
Oh,
broke my arm, and yeah, so at the end of September, stepping
wow.
out of the shower, I broke my arm right under my shoulder, and I shattered my leg right under my knee. Broken 12 places. I don't recommend this. And I'm like just 6 weeks into learning to walk. And this
Wow.
happened in September. Like, it was that bad. And one of the things that I knew this as a professional organizer, but feeling this, and I've had like chronic illness before and stuff, but like this was different. I mean, the pain, the dependency on other people, like all these different things. My ability to make decisions went to nothing. And
Mm,
like, I love coloring mandalas. Like, that's one of like my favorite,
mm,
like, because again, you can put it down, right?
yeah.
Sorry, I feel like I'm about to sneeze.
Sure.
Um, oh my gosh, excuse me.
No problem.
And and my husband got me this one because we love mid-century stuff. And he got me this really cool mid-century coloring book. And I couldn't do it because what colors am I going to color anything? Like, it was
Mm,
much easier for me to just do my pencil sketching, because like, even though I had different kinds of pencils that I could use, it was still just a pencil. Like, and if I used a harder one or a softer one, like, really it didn't matter. Right? But I didn't have to decide a color. I didn't have to decide where that color needed to go, which square or circle that needed to go in, because it just, like, it was too much.
mm,
And so some of it is like, you just have to know like where you are seasonally too. Like, I was in a season where like decisions were hard, and they're getting easier, but they're still not as easy as they were in what I called the before.
right.
So, what can you do to make things easier for yourself? And that's where the value stuff comes in too, right?
Right.
Because again, it makes decision making easier. So no matter what it's for, knowing knowing what you value makes the decision making so much easier. And then you add in any neuro differences, right?
Right.
Whether you're on the spectrum, ADHD, those kinds of things. And wow, that becomes even more important.
Wow. Yeah. Which is a new discovery for me. And
Mm.
understanding that, but also confusing that with the gifted mind that dives deep into stuff, but then is ready for something else soon, you know? So understanding that aspect of it too, because I think that is has a lot to do with, like, I realized I discovered the art, but that's a keeper. Like, okay, this is looks like a
Mm-hmm.
season, but I would do this more often if I had the funds and the
Right.
time. Yeah. So not making yourself feel bad for going deep on stuff, mastering it. For me, like, I master things pretty quickly, which is some past
Mm-hmm.
life stuff. I brought music apparently and art into this lifetime, and healing that just
Nice.
happened naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So I master it. And once I master it, I'm like, okay, I want to do big stuff now, you know?
Right.
Like, turn it up. So yeah.
Well, and the
Understanding that
giftedness
aspect.
goes beautifully with all that, right? I mean, they're not,
Right.
it's not you're gifted or you're on the spectrum,
Right.
or you're gifted or you're ADHD, right? They very much go hand in hand. They're just part of who you are, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, you wear glasses, you have your ears pierced, right? Like they're not mutually exclusive things. They're just
Right.
part of who you are.
Exactly.
And they're part of
So can you tell me more about how the patriarchy is woven into this space, this organizing and all? Like, can you just speak on that more?
oh yeah. So a lot of it is that innate feeling that we as women have that, well, we're supposed to be good at organizing, we're supposed to be good at cleaning, we're supposed to be good at all the household things, right? Cooking and all the things, right? We're supposed to be married, we're supposed to have kids, we're supposed to all these things, right? That's all patriarchal crap, right? And I mean, and let's be real, like that's white patriarchal crap, right? So not just generic, right? And then
Mm,
you add in the South, right, where that becomes even more entrenched. And and giving the caveat that Texas and Louisiana are the South, but they're not the South. Like we're our own special places, right?
well, my parents
And
are from
so,
Mississippi though, so that ain't more, you can't get more souther than
right, no,
that.
that's South South, yeah, yeah. So that brought its own
Yeah.
stuff with it too. Um, but like you didn't come out of the womb knowing how to drive. You didn't come out of the womb knowing how to make coffee. Why should we expect that you came out of the womb knowing how to organize?
Right.
Just because you have a certain set of chromosomes. Like, that's just the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, right?
Right.
Well, because you're female, you should know. No. Like, there are certain things that are built in with that chromosome.
Right.
Like, as a theory, may I be able to make a child? Yes.
Right.
May I be able to feed that child from my person? Yes. Does that always work? No. So it doesn't matter. Like, even the stuff that's built in doesn't always work.
Exactly.
The rest of it's not built in. The rest of it is stuff that's been handed down for generations and generations and generations. And I mean, and you think like we're talking like caveman level, right? So even like really before the patriarchy, right? At some level it was there had to be a really distinguished set of roles. Well, the women had to stay behind because they were the ones nursing the kids, right? They were the ones literally feeding the small children. So if they were going to stay there and the men were going to go off and hunt because somebody had to go hunt,
Right.
then well they might as well be the ones to take care of the homes, do the cooking, those kinds of things. Like it made sense in that society, and it just kept going, right? And you think about like how our laws have been created and how they excluded ownership for women, right? Like none of it was ours, and you got married and all of a sudden like really none of it was yours. And but yet I'm supposed to be the one to take care of all the things in
Right.
the house that can't ever be mine. And but that was just at some level women were just, sort of well-paid servants, right?
Right.
I mean, and even the super wealthy, like they still had They were there for entertaining. They were there for certain things, but they didn't need to be in the business like the finances or anything. But they had certain things they were supposed to do. And certain generations were taught very specific things to be able to do that.
Right.
But then it started getting really cloudy with feminism, right? Like the, trying to pull away from that patriarchy, trying to, well, then nobody's necessarily teaching you anything, right? Because
Right.
there's not a bucket of like, these are roles you're supposed to know how to do.
Right.
And so that's not getting passed down. And so then now there's still the expectation that we're supposed to do those because, again, we have the special chromosomes. So we're
Right.
supposed to know how to do that.
The magical ones, yeah.
Right. But yet we've never been taught things.
Right.
Right. And so it's, to me, it's just a whole bunch of hooey. Like, like, and you don't have to enjoy organizing. You don't have to be good at it. It's about understanding that it is still valuable for you, even if you don't like it.
Right.
Right. Right. And understanding its value in your life and in your space, in your schedule, for your spirit. Because at the end of the day, if your space is a hot mess, and if you are constantly like from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep, like booked up on the calendar, when are you taking care of you? Right? And you're constantly in that. I mean, like I see this with my daughter. Like her room looks like a bomb went off. And so there's constantly this to do of like, you need to clean up your room. You need to clean up your room. You need to clean up your room. And she's like, but I'd rather spend time with y'all. I was like, oh, I'd rather you do that too. But if you could ever actually get the room clean so that you had a space that felt good for you, then it'd be easier for you to spend more time with us because there wouldn't be that constant set of tasks. And you would have a place that would feel more restorative, where you could get better sleep just because you created a space that felt good for you.
So I want to ask though, I challenge the idea that my space can look a certain way and people think it's not restorative. Like, why? Like, there's this whole
Yeah.
the whole religion is cleanliness is the closest you get to God or whatever, right?
Oh, yeah. No, that's all fooey.
Right. Like, okay, but just because I'm a bit messier doesn't mean that I don't sleep well. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right. Right. No, no, no. It's about what suits you.
right.
I mean, literally, she has to step over stuff and move stuff every night off of her bed to go to sleep because it's that kind of a disaster, right? And sometimes there's a funky smell, and she doesn't like it,
Hmm.
but she's not changing it,
I see that. Yeah.
right? Whereas, like when I was in high school, my room literally, I mean, there were piles of clothes, and I knew which ones were clean and which ones were dirty, and my mom hated it, but it didn't bother me,
Right. That's me. Yeah.
right? Right, and that's okay. It's when it bothers you,
But you're not changing it.
but you're not changing it, and then that's where the rub is, right?
Girl, I've had enough for
I'm
today.
sorry. Go get some water and take a nap.
I need a cigarette after this. And I don't even smoke.
Piece of. Whatever it takes,
I know. Oh man. So this is what you do with your clients. Is it more
Mhm.
consultative or it's just more so you facilitate the conversation and then help them do it on their own?
Yeah, so I do this inside of a membership
Oh, cool.
where we all sort of gather. There's a curriculum that guides them through the process, and we focus on one space every month. If you want to work on a different space because something's itching at you, that's fine. But generally, they like that decision already being made for them, right?
Hmm.
So this month we're working on our dining room and pantry, right? Last month we did the kitchen. The month before we did meal planning, right? And so then it'll start flowing. Like in the next 3 months, we're going to be doing our sanctuary spaces. And so we'll spend 3 months sort of in a sort of themed kind of concept. But every single week we have a co-working coaching call where, you know, talk to me about how your week has been. What are you planning to do on the next week? Where are you getting stuck? What feels hard? And sometimes it's mindset stuff, and sometimes it's like I've got all these freaking pots and pan lids and I don't know where the heck to put them because they're fussy, right? So sometimes it's just very logistical, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's bigger mindset stuff.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And I guess we'll talk soon.
Absolutely.
All
Yes,
right.
sounds
I'll
good.
see you
Bye bye.
later. All right. Bye.